ESPN's Linda Cohn with Armin and Levac on 104.5 The Team. Game 1 of the World Series tomorrow night, Linda. How confident should Mets fans be heading into the World Series?
Well, you know how Mets fans are. We're confident, but we're nervous Nellies. Just because of our history, although our recent history, of course, and with this group, this New York Mets 2015 edition, has given this fan base so much confidence. And why? Because obviously the young pitching rotation that the Mets have. This will be their toughest opponent of the postseason by far. The Kansas City Royals is like a cat. You know, they've shown they have 9 lives, because just when you count this team out in any given game, they will come through when it matters most. I mean, ask Toronto about that, and ask everyone they've played. You have to be that way to get to back-to-back World Series, which is so difficult, as we all know, to do. So the Mets even know that they're going to have to play better, and they're going to have to get more offensive production out of this lineup, other than, of course, the legendary Daniel Murphy.
You brought up that young pitching staff, Linda. What about Matt Harvey starting Game 1? Is that the right call?
Well, you know what? Earlier in the week, I was tweeting out that I believe that the Mets' best pitcher is Jacob deGrom, and Jacob deGrom should start Game 1. But after listening to Terry Collins and looking at some of the numbers, I do now agree with Matt Harvey going 1, just because of how Matt Harvey pitches with too much rest, and he would have way too much rest if he did not pitch Game 1. And then looking at how Jacob deGrom pitches when he has perhaps an extra day or two of rest, and how much better he is in that regard. So I get it now. I get it, and I like it. And like all Mets fans, we're committed to it. And I do love everything that Matt Harvey is saying and doing, and especially him coming off his last start, which was stellar. You got to feel good about what's going on, and I fully expect Matt Harvey to pitch like a guy who is a Game 1 starter of the World Series.
ESPN's Linda Cohn with Armin and Levac. Catch her on Sports Centers on the weekends now, Saturday and Sunday mornings on ESPN2. Linda, what's your biggest fear as a Mets fan, Mets versus Royals in this World Series?
That's an easy one. My biggest fear is the Royals, what they do, 2 things that they do great that the Mets haven't seen. They put the ball in play. They don't strike out much. And they'll make these pitchers work for everything they get. And that being said, part B of that, or the second part of that concern, is the way the Mets play defense. They cannot afford to make any mistakes against this team. They cannot afford to give this team an extra out. Because if they do, the Mets will be in trouble, and there will be cause for concern. So if the Mets can, A, play defense, they played solid defense in the first 2 series of the postseason. But this is a Royals team that puts the ball in play more than they strike out. In fact, I think they strike out the fewest amount of times of any team in the postseason. So the Mets' defense will be tested, and they have to be on their game. And if they do that and they get the young pitching doing what they're doing, it might be a quicker series. But if they don't, it's going to be challenging.
Linda, Giants topped the Cowboys yesterday. Is this a team that will contend in the NFC East to the bitter end?
I was at that game yesterday, and the first half was a snooze fest. And then the second half, players made plays. And that's what the Giants have to do. The good news, obviously, for them is the NFC East is awful this year. And so they have a chance. That's why yesterday's home victory against a bad Dallas Cowboys team with Matt Castle at the controls was such a huge win that they found a way, the Dwayne Harrises of the world, Beeson firing up the defense when it mattered most, in that second half making plays to overcome a Ruben Randall drop that would have put the game away, even though Ruben Randall had a stellar catch, obviously with one hand. Because that's the kind of thing, the Giants are not a good enough team to get away with the slightest of errors or misfortune. Good teams can, the Packers can. The Broncos can with a bad Peyton Manning because they have a great defense. But the New York Giants cannot. So that's the thing. So can the Giants go on a run here? they have to win the games they're supposed to win. And, they got a challenge next week at New Orleans. That's going to be a tough game, and they don't play well there in New Orleans. So, listen, if we get day to day, it's week to week, right, with the Giants. So we'll see what we get, and you can only hope for Giants fans like myself. They improve, and the offense has to improve in the red zone, obviously. But again, Eli's doing it with smoke and mirrors because he really doesn't have anyone. Odell Beckham Jr. is probably playing with that hurt, and he's not 100%. That we know with a bad hamstring. Ruben Randall is a toss-up. Ruben Randall is not a number 2 receiver on all great teams, but he is now because there's no Victor Cruz. So Eli's doing what he can do and trying to make something happen. And an offensive line, that is always a question mark. And the most important thing with the Giants, which is their biggest problem, no pass rush. And that's the biggest concern right now.
ESPN's Linda Cohn. Linda, it's funny, Levac and I were at the game yesterday. The first half for us wasn't as much of a snoozer because our seats were right next to the red zone channel, like a gigantic big screen. And Levac is a Raiders fan, so it was like the most exciting first half ever for him because the game was and he's got his back turned the entire time going, look what the Raiders are doing. Look what the Raiders are doing.
Let me tell you, the people around me, we did not have that advantage. We just looked at the mere mortal looking at the scoreboard and seeing that score, and we're like, what the heck has gone into the Raiders? So I'll tell you one thing, guys, with the NFL this year, I mean, I have fun. I bet on this. We do this league against the spread. And I'll tell you, that's hard enough every year to pick teams when you're picking against the spread. This year, oh, my goodness. I had my worst week of the year this week, yesterday. It was awful because of all the parity and you couldn't forget the Raiders thing. I mean, all these things. You think the Lions would do for a win at home, taking on a Minnesota Vikings team, not to be. You didn't think Jacksonville was going to win. I picked Buffalo on that one. They almost pulled it out. These kind of things, you just don't know. And Washington, come on. Kirk Cousins. Oh.
Linda, I'm 100% with you. I did not do well at all yesterday in the predicting of the games. Levac, go ahead and tell the class what happened to you yesterday.
I might have picked up an 18 parlay.
Are you kidding me, Linda? How does that happen? We walk out of the stadium and he's like, look what just happened to my $2 bet.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Crazy. And that's why we watch this sport, I guess. And I guess that's why we also don't watch it, and it drives us nuts. ESPN's Linda Cohn with Armin and Levac. Catch her on Saturday, Sunday mornings on ESPN2 with her Linda Cohn and the Sports Centers. And Linda, Greg Hardy blows up on his teammates on the coach yesterday. Well, what should happen with him?
Well, I just tweeted a bunch of tweets out on Greg Hardy, and, of course, all the haters came out to get me like I'm the villain.
Right.
But I said, if Roger Goodell is so concerned about protecting the Shield and his legacy, why isn't he on a mission to get this guy out of the league? That was one tweet. The second tweet I had at Linda Cohn was very simple. I said, if Greg Hardy deflated a football, he'd be getting a lot more attention from the league. So those are my 2 points. I don't understand. It's an embarrassment to the NFL. I don't care about what happened in court. It was cleared and all this. We know what Greg Hardy's about. And Jerry Jones is an embarrassment right now. And I don't care. If I was a Cowboys fan, I would be embarrassed that this guy is on my team. If I was a true fan of the game of football and cared about my team, I would not want this guy. He's a bad seed. He's anger problems, obviously, because look what he's getting to a fight with one of his coaches. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that Jerry Jones allows this person in that locker room and on this team. That's it. He should be out of the league. No one would sneeze about it. Nobody. No one would look at the NFL like, oh, my God, what have you done? But it's such hypocrisy, and actually I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the hypocrisy about the NFL and the missions and the politics that takes place with the NFL. It's a shame because we know how great the game is.
Absolutely. Well, let's get you on a happier note. What has to happen for your Rangers to hoist Lord Stanley's Cup this year?
I tell you, I'm probably the only one that cares about my team in October. I do. They're on a nice little run. They just have to get in. We saw what happened when they won the President's Trophy. It's all fun and games. It's nice, but you usually don't win the Stanley Cup when you do that. The thing is, the biggest concern for the Rangers is the amount of games they played in the last 2+ seasons. The good news is they went far into the playoffs. Obviously 2 years ago, the final conference finals the last year. But you can see by the conference finals of Game 7, they were beat, they were tired, and they were, shut out. So the point is they have to figure out a way, and Coach Elaine Vigneault has been pretty good with the way of giving them days off. They'll get in the playoffs. They'll be fine. They have so much experience with this core group. They're fine, and they got the goaltending. They have Henrik Lundqvist, and you got to love Antti Raanta, the backup they picked up from Chicago. He's pulling the Cam Talbot imitation. So, they'll be there right then and there in the end, but it's only late October. So, but I'm watching every single minute of every game. But, there it is. They'll be fine. They're right in there in the Eastern Conference, wide open yet again. So that's why Ranger fans should be very confident that the Eastern Conference is wide open and that the Rangers don't play in the Western Conference, which is very key.
Linda Cohn with Armin and Levac. Linda, your take on, we have Jessica Mendoza now calling postseason baseball for ESPN. We have multiple female referees now at the football level, both college and professional. As a female trailblazer as yourself in our industry, what's your reaction to where we're headed as a society and that direction we're going in?
Well, I'll always say this, and I think she does a fine job, but I will always say this, and people always ask me this question, even if just, women seeing more and more women in the field of sports broadcasting, and obviously since I've been around for so long, people ask me that, you got to be happy with that, and I always tell them the same thing. I'm thrilled with it if the people are qualified, just like I would if we were talking about a man. If the women are qualified to be doing so, in that position, I love it. I love it because there are so many great women out there who have been given a chance to shine. And ESPN has a lot to do with that. Just to name one, like for college football, I love Kaylee Hartung. She is an amazing reporter. She does it all. It's just everything. There's a camera presence, plus she's knowledgeable. And that's what you have to have. If you have the knowledge, the confidence, the passion in the sport, and the camera presence, that's great. But if you are there just because you're a woman, it's not great. So at least ESPN has made right decisions and right choices involving, the selections and the promotions they have made when it comes to certain women in certain roles. So that's what, if they're qualified and they're great at what they do, now they're getting opportunities to do it. And I think that's a good thing.
At Linda Cohn on Twitter and Instagram, Saturday and Sunday mornings on ESPN2, hosting Sports Centers. Linda, you're the best. Thank you so much again for your time today.
Anytime, guys. This is fun to be a Mets, Rangers, and Giants fan.